This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
The conference championships are over. We got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl even airs, but you know what is coming up this week, baby? We have the East-West Shrine Bowl this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You will see some of the college's best go at it in Dallas on the field, and we have our picks for the players to watch in the East-West Shrine Bowl. And I know everyone in here has done their research and looked up everything that they need to look up for those players, and we have great picks for you for sure. And you know what? I could go first. I want to go first because the guy I want to talk about is absolutely going to be the guy to watch at the East-West Shrine Bowl. But you know what? I'm going to save him for last because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm selfish. I want to have the last word. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to Matt first, the guy who doesn't care if he has the last word because his first word is what everyone's going to watch anyway. So Matt, who is the key guy that we need to watch in the East-West Shrine Bowl?
I mean, listen, Joe, I'm going to be the mainstream guy here. I'm going to give the mainstream answer. I'm going to give the answer that literally everyone was watching the entire year, probably the biggest story in college football this year. I'm going to the University of Colorado, and the main guy I want to talk about is the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. We all know Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Sanders. And again, I think a lot of people want to hate him because of his dad and the amount of buzz he gets. If you watch this guy play, this guy is an NFL quarterback. He is NFL ready right now. And there's going to be a team in the top 10 that drafts Shedeur Sanders that should be really, really excited about him. Because to me, he is the most likely quarterback to be good in this draft. I don't know if there's any quarterback that's going to be truly great. I think last year's quarterback class had about 4 or 5 guys that could be truly great. I don't know if there's any quarterback in this class that's going to be like that as far as a truly great quarterback goes. But I think Shedeur Sanders is the most likely quarterback to be good in this class, and I think he's the most likely quarterback to be starting a decade from now in this class as well. If you watch him play, obviously the dude can play. The dude is a savvy, smart, accurate quarterback. He obviously a 4-year starter in college, 50 college starts. This year he had a 74% completion percentage, led the nation in completion percentage this year, 4th in yards, 2nd in touchdowns, and 5th in rating. So Shedeur, just number wise, you watch him play. Combined with the numbers, he balled out. And then obviously his circumstances weren't the best either. Obviously you got some really good receivers in at the University of Colorado, but no run game to speak of. Their leading rusher had like 400 yards rushing and a bad offensive line. He was constantly dealing with free rushers. If you watch his tape, like he's always having to evade a free rusher in his tape. He's always having to take a shot and make a throw. And again, if he gets drafted in the top 10, he's probably going to be dealing with a situation like that when he gets drafted in the top 10. So he's going to be accustomed to dealing with stuff like that very often. So I think he's going to be a great fit for somebody in the top 10. He's poised. He has an ability to perform under pressure, both on the field, obviously, like I just mentioned, having to deal with free rushers and things like that, and then off the field as well. Like there's no player in the country who plays under more pressure than Shedeur Sanders does on a game-to-game basis, because everybody is sitting there watching him, wanting him to fail, and he consistently produced in his entire college career. So he's obviously, you watch him play too, he reads the field very well. He's got a high IQ. He throws with amazing anticipation. He is a great anticipatory thrower, very accurate. He takes really good care of the ball. I think he had 134 touchdown passes in college, just 27 interceptions. So that's a 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He did an amazing job taking care of the ball. You watch him, he's mobile. He's not fast, but he can run. He scrambles to pass, not to run. He's when he gets out of the pocket, he's looking to throw the ball. He's not looking to take off and run. He's got some great pocket awareness. He's got great pocket movement. And I think people are sleeping on his arm a little bit. I think he's got an underrated arm. It's not a hose, but he's got a really solid, good quality arm. Obviously, he's got the size you want from a quarterback, 6'2", 215. He might have a little bit of a lower ceiling than Cam Ward or some of these other guys, but to me, he's got the highest floor of all the quarterbacks in the draft to me. For me, his best comparison, I think CJ Stroud is his best comparison. A lot of those attributes that I just mentioned with CJ Stroud, he's mobile, but he's not fast. He doesn't have a huge arm, but he's deadly accurate. He's super poised. He can deal with pressure. I think a lot of those traits are CJ Stroud-esque to me. I think his high end, I don't think he gets to this high end. His absolute max ceiling would be Joe Burrow. I don't know if he gets there, but I think his low end, his floor is Geno Smith. I think that's the worst version of Shedeur Sanders we're going to be, and that's just a really solid NFL starting quarterback. Maybe he, like Geno, he fails a little bit right away, but he just turns into a really solid NFL starting quarterback. So for me, I think Shedeur Sanders, as far as this game goes, is going to be the one that you want to watch because he's been the one you want to watch all year in terms of college football.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Geno Smith, like, 10 years ago would have been like, oh God, Geno Smith.
Yeah.
But Geno Smith now is a solid quarterback. I mean, we've seen him, come into a Seattle team that we thought was going to be dead in the water without Russell Wilson. So that is not a knock at all. I think that's a great comp. I think that's a very, it's a solid quarterback. Like you said, at worst case, you are a guaranteed top 15 starting quarterback in the NFL. That's not a bad place to be. There are better places to be, but if that's the worst you're ever going to be, that's not terrible. I'm okay with that.
A lot of people are looking for a top 15 starting quarterback right now.
Yes, absolutely they are, especially in this draft. I mean, this draft is not like last year's. Like we said, the talent level, just the ceilings aren't as high, right? And the floors are lower. Even for someone who doesn't have an overly low floor, it still probably would have only been good for like maybe the 6th or 7th quarterback off the board last year based on what we saw. So that kind of tells you where this is at, but it's still not bad. So, like you said, it's the mainstream answer. Anyone who's watching the East West Shrine Bowl is tuning in to see, does his stock go up? Does it go down? How does he perform in a situation where all of the talent is there? Absolutely. But I'm going to go to Chris on this one. Chris, I know that you have somebody else in mind outside of Shedeur Sanders at the East West Shrine Bowl that you're looking forward to seeing, and I want to know who that is. Who is your guy to watch at the East West Shrine Bowl?
I do. So I actually think it's funny that he mentioned C.J. Stroud being the comp for Shedeur Sanders, because I also have a very similar comp that is on the Texans team, which is our wide receiver 1 and Nico Collins, and that being Dante Thornton Jr., wide receiver out of Tennessee. But fun fact, he actually spent 2 years in Oregon before he transferred, so he actually worked with Bo Nix for his first 2 years, and then he, funny enough, going into Tennessee, his first year with Tennessee, he actually worked with the Patriots rookie quarterback in Joe Milton. So that's always something fun to see. But I look at it, and you want to talk about like these big time receivers, and we talk about it all the time, that we're seeing in the NFL right now who are just taking over games. So when you look at that and you want to look at comps and you kind of want to look at their size and want to look what they're bringing to the table, I think Dante Thornton isn't really being talked about, in my opinion, as much as he probably should be. And it might just be because of the lack of quarterback play where he's not getting a ton of snaps. But if you're looking at him, he's 6'5". He's 214 pounds. That was as of, the last time that they took his specs. And then his last 40 that he ran, he was running a 4.43, I'm sorry, which is literally like a half a centimeter off of what Nico Collins threw as well. And thanks to Joe, because I love him so much, some of his fun stats, you have 25.5 yards a reception, which leads the FBS in minimum 34 targets. You have a 10.7 yards yak, right? So he's second in FBS minimum, and then second in yaks say it one more time.
It's yak route run.
Oh, I'm like, don't understand that one. Right. And then you said 75% contested catch rate, which is huge when you're talking about the NFL, right? I think that's probably one of the biggest ones when you talk about contested catches. So the biggest strengths that I've seen and I've kind of looked into when it comes to him, he has elite size and speed combo. He's excelled in track. So specifically the one I look at is the 100 meter and then the high jump. I think it gives him the ability not only to get shifty down the field, but, can make high contested catches, which you just talked about. He has 75% contection rate, which is great. So the things I want to look at, though, and then also he's known to be quick off the snap and very smooth in his acceleration. Basically, he can break the top off of a defense, go right down the field, whether it's a vertical, whether it's in the middle of the field. We've seen it on several of the tapes that we've looked at where he's just basically looks like he's just wide open in the middle of the field. It just takes off for a touchdown. And I don't think he's being really talked about enough. And the more I'm looking into it, is the more I'm finding like, man, I could definitely see him. I was really big on Lad McConkey last year coming into, I believe it was the Reese Senior Bowl. Now I'm looking into it into the Pacific Bowl, right? Into the Shrine Bowl. And I'm like, he could be very much, at least for me, someone that I'm looking at, like he can raise his stock so much, because right now what he's looking at, from everything that I've looked at, they have him rated about 5th round, which I think if he can come, and I'll get into like the reasons on what I'm looking at as far as the Shrine Bowl is concerned. But when I'm looking at where he's rated right now in the 5th round, what he could possibly do, because there are a lot of wide receiver needy teams right now who are looking for someone to be their wide receiver one that can get down the field and at least give the defense something to think about. And I think we've seen that several times now throughout the playoffs. You need a high power. I don't care what anybody says. You need the 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver, big guy, get down the field that no one, even if they catch him, they're not going to be able to knock him down very easily. He can break routes. You need the big guy. You need someone that can make defense pay attention. So what I think he can do here, it gives himself that option to maybe move up. And you, like we just said about the QBs, right? Like somebody's going to take a swing at him. Somebody's going to take a swing at this wide receiver if he can just show them a taste of what he can provide them. If it be able to take over a game and move up his stock very well. So what I'm looking at for the Shrine Bowl wise, I look, how does he perform against high level competition? I don't think he's had a lot of it. So I would like to see, with this opportunity, you're basically on a big screen for people to watch. Like, how do you react to this high level competition? And then also, like, he's known to struggle, from what I've looked at, he's known to struggle with press coverage. So I want to see if that has shown an improvement since that has been placed out, if he's shown some improvement from that. And then will he show off the strength and his build and his skill set to show that his ability to become a threat, both vertical and intermediate routes, prove that he can be a number one wide receiver with the right team and the right coaching staff. Because I think he definitely has that ability to do so. And just like he's right now, his comp is Nico Collins. And then something that Joe pointed out right before we started, which I didn't even know about and didn't really think about, is that he's also a very good comp to Brian Thomas Jr., who right now, is when you're looking at the rookie of the year in the offensive side, he's in the finals. He's in the finals. It's basically all LSU at this point. Like, their whole offensive team is in the finals. So just look at what he was able to do. And I would say he had a subpar offense option for him when he went into the Jaguars to begin with. His quarterback one got hurt. I don't think he was really in his field by that point. And then you have Mac Jones that's kind of, taking over the rest of the reins as he got hurt. And he didn't have a lot, but he put up over 1,000 yards just based off subpar. So if you're getting that out of a Dante Thornton Jr., like, you can't tell me that defenses aren't going to have to pay attention to that guy just because he's on the field. It doesn't even matter how you play him. Just with him being on the field, they have to pay attention to it. So for me, that is something I am looking forward to watching. I am hoping that he is as eye-catching as he seems to be, and I will definitely be watching to see what he does.
Yeah, and to your point, like, the guy only had 34 targets all year. 26 of those are receptions. That's a 76.5% catch rate, okay? On top of that, he had, like I said, the yards per reception is nuts. 6 touchdowns means about every fourth catch was a touchdown for this guy. Then add on the fact that he only played 187 snaps. 187 snaps. You got a guy like that who's only playing 187 snaps, and it just didn't make sense. He just wasn't utilized in Tennessee. His stock is low because Tennessee just didn't play him. And granted, they have a lot of talent. There's a lot of things that the Vols have going from a wide receiver perspective. Squirrel White is still there. I think that, he may be a one-trick pony because a lot of people's biggest knock is how refined is his route running. But I'm sorry. Everything I watched, the dude only needs to run 2 routes, the go and the hitch, because he's so damn fast. Every corner he faced in the NCAA gave him like 8 yards of separation. And then he would end up with an extra, like, you would, catch up to them. They would turn their hips and he would just drop down, hitch, and he's got 7 yards of separation for a catch. It's easy. For him. Yep. Those are the 2 things he's got to run. Like, I don't understand why you didn't have him out there. The guy should be a 1,000-yard guy minimum, but you didn't even use it correctly. Because everyone he went up against, he absolutely fucking burned.
Yep.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, he is on my watch. I think he's a dark horse, and I think if he goes in the 5th round and to a team that can develop wide receivers, can utilize wide receivers, knows how to implement them, he's going to be a steal. The guy I actually have, I struggled with a comp for this guy because he played predominantly in the slot in college. He's 6'3", 195. It's a very large slot. That's not a small slot guy, right? Like that is 6'3" is almost unheard of in the slot. That's because you think about your slot corner, they're on average like 5'9", 5'10". This guy's like 4 or 5 inches taller than the slot corner is going to be guarding him. Massive wingspan. I'm talking about the Triple Crown winner, Nick Nash. Nick Nash was invited to East West Shrine Bowl. Now understand something. If you have not seen Nick Nash play, because he plays for San Jose State, Go watch some tape. Go watch some highlight reels, and you'll understand why I'm high on Nick Nash. Now, Nick Nash is a 6-year senior. This is why he's falling down boards, why people aren't really paying attention to him. He's an older prospect. He's an older guy coming out of the draft. I get that. However, the one thing that Nick Nash has over everything else, and he has a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. He was a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. After his second year, they brought in a new quarterback. He knew he wasn't going to play quarterback. He transitions to wide receiver and then absolutely dominates. He led the NCAA in targets, led them in receptions, led in yards, and led in touchdowns at the wide receiver position, was a Blitnikoff finalist. And honestly, San Jose State played a decent amount of really good teams comparatively to Colorado, which he played better than Shedeur Sanders, and I think, or not Shedeur Sanders, but Travis Hunter, in my opinion, and should have won that Blitnikoff award. That's just me. I digress. He high points the ball probably the best in this draft. The guy, if you throw it up, this guy comes down with it. He knows how to catch with his hands. He uses his body and his frame well. Large catch radius, very, very good. Savvy route runner, and his football IQ and his quarterback background allows him to take advantage of zone coverage very, very easily. This guy will find the soft spot, run to open areas on the field, very ad-lib, can see what the quarterback sees, and can really get in tune with the quarterback. I think that's very, very important because if you think about it, a lot of the times, and we've seen Travis Kelce have this interview before, he's like, half the time I don't run the route that the play is because I see the defense. I see the defense the way Patrick sees the defense. And then he goes out there and he runs to the open zone and Patrick hits him. That's how they work. That's how they connect. In zone coverage, Travis Kelce's able to identify zone. I think Nick Nash can do that same thing for a quarterback. And even if it's man, he has a few issues in press, but he's in the slot. He's on the line. He's going to get a clean release. Put him in motion. Does not matter. He finds the open places. He contested catch guy. Just toss it up for him and let him go get it. Now, he had, like I said, all the stats with the yards, all those things. 19 contested catches on the year, 50% conversion rate. He had 30, I think he had 38 total contested catch opportunities, caught 19 of them. 171 targets, 6 drops. 6 drops on 171 targets. It's a 5.5% drop percentage. That is insane. But he, like I said, primarily played in the slot. Now, his verticals impressive, can jump out of the stadium, and I struggle with the comp because a lot of the things he does very well is a lot of things I think T. Higgins does very well. High points the ball very well, is able to be a red zone threat, finds the openings in the zone, uses his frame very well, but T. Higgins plays outside. T. Higgins is a little taller, a little heavier than Nick Nash. So I kind of went with a slot comparison here for another guy who's a little big for the slot. Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen and Nick Nash have a very similar route style. I think they have a very similar football IQ, the ability to kind of use their body and frame to outmatch and outmuscle the smaller slot corners and slot defenders that they have, usually facing these guys. And I think that, Keenan Allen's 6'2", 6'3", they're comparable in weight. They're not far off from each other. That's who I see Nick Nash. Now, it's very rare that we have a Triple Crown winner who isn't in the top 50 of anybody's top 50 prospects. Nick Nash is pretty much what they're saying is Nick Nash is not a first or second round prospect. If Nick Nash does not go in the first or second round, I'm going to fucking riot. Because he absolutely deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. Okay? And that's just how it is. But Sammy's heard us talk about all this stuff. And now it's Sammy's turn to tell us what he thinks of all the shit we've just said and who possibly could be his East-West Shrine Bowl player to watch.
I'm gonna go with the guy you guys weren't even thinking about, at all, whatsoever. I'm gonna go with the guy you guys weren't even considering, pondering. No, I'm playing. Ja'Cory Brooks is my guy. Out of Louisville, 6'3", 195 pounds. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my comparison. Quentin Johnston with hands. I do believe that he really is one of the more underrated wide receivers in this draft. Now, granted, his only thing, because out of high school he was a 5-star prospect, his only thing is that he kind of started getting injured, and because of that, his tape kind of got a little a lot of people were confuzzled. They didn't really know, okay, well, is this guy the truth? Is he not the truth? Yeah, it's a word, Matt. Look it up. And this year at Louisville, at Louisville. He had 61 catches, 1,013 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. Nothing crazy special, but if you look at his tape, you can see he has a tremendous catch radius. He's 6'3". He's very twitchy with his footwork, very deceptive with his footwork. I think Quentin Johnson, he's one of those guys who gets open, right? And that, when it comes time for the ball to hit his hands, much like Dalton Kincaid, he can't make the catch. So it sucks for him, Quentin Johnson.
Too soon.
He had a better year.
Too soon.
He had a better year. No, it's not too soon. It's a perfect timing. Now, with that being said, one of the things that I think Ja'Cory Brooks can improve upon is his route tree. I said he's twitchy, but he doesn't really have a particular go. He doesn't really have a very wide variety of routes to really go to. So I believe that that's something they're going to be looking at in the combine. Like, okay, how versatile can you be when it comes to this kind of route running? And his speed is probably one of the biggest question marks. So it says here his 40 is 465, but we're not really sure if it's 465 or like back in high school, some said it was a 4.4. So this combine, this Shrine Bowl, this entire thing is very big for Ja'Cory Brooks, because if he gets a good 40 time, right, that only adds his intrigue. He's already 6'3", a good wide receiver height. He's 195. He could go up in weight for sure. But I think Ja'Cory Brooks has all the tools to be a solid wide receiver in this draft. Is he going to go high in the draft? Probably not. I mean, there's a lot of question marks about him that I think are valid question marks. His injury history. But I think he's proven that he can play in big games. His first 2 years he was in Alabama. He played in the Iron Bowl. He had a big catch during the Iron Bowl. And then at Louisville, he just proved that he can be a wide receiver one for your team, for your program. So I think there's a lot of growing that he needs to do. There's a lot of developing, but I think it's definitely something that a team late in the draft, maybe a team like, the Ravens want to shoot for. Maybe he pairs him up because, Ja'Cory Brooks is from Bradenton, Florida, 305 stand up. That's kind of why I picked him. But I think those two might have some good chemistry since they're both from Florida, surely. No, I'm playing. But what I will say is this. I do think that Ja'Cory Brooks, out of high school, 5-star prospect, there's something there in Ja'Cory Brooks that I think that NFL teams can really shed a light on. But really it's been uncertainty with injuries, his route tree, and I mean, straight up, it's just uncertainty, really. So if he gets those uncertainties, fixed up, I think he could be a very solid wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys take anything away from anything we said in over the last 22 minutes, take this. There's tons of reasons to watch the East-West Shrine Bowl this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are not turning on the East-West Shrine Bowl, I know I'll be tuning in. I'll be taking tons of notes to do a recap on it. It is all prospect preview, everything like that right now. It is draft prep, baby. We are getting there going. You got to start now. Because if you don't start now, you're behind the fucking curve. So check out the East-West Shrine Bowl. You won't regret it, I promise.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.